Hi again then guys, and welcome to yet another specific look at a certain car from the Gran Turismo Sport lineup, and this time it's the twin of a car that we've already looked at, the Hyundai N 2025 Vision GT car. But of course, a couple of months ago now I think it was, we looked at the Group X version, which you would safely assume would probably be the superior of the two until you actually use them. And this happens quite often with these Group 1 versus Group X variants of a number of these cars, where you'll actually find that the Group 1 car, although inferior to begin with, can actually be a better vehicle overall. Certainly in terms of usability, of course, but also in terms of, more often than not, the tuning and sometimes even the spec as well. Now, the Group X version definitely has the advantage in its stock form. It's got around 870 horsepower. This car has 640. And of course, both of them are hybrids, very unique cars within the stratosphere of the game. Personally, I'm a big fan of these Hyundais. I love the tech, I love the look of the car, and in some ways it kind of reminds me of the creativity of the Chaparral as well. This and the Chaparral are probably my two favourite overall Vision GTs. Now, in terms of the performance difference between the two, it's actually kind of similar to the difference between the two Audi Vision GT cars that we got a couple of months back, wherein the Group X version has great raw potential. Likewise with the Group X version of this car, it's got seamless acceleration from the direct drive, it's already got a ton of power, if I recall correctly, quite a bit of torque as well, whereas with this one, just like with the Audi Group 1 version, it's not quite as necessarily out there as the Group X car, but it gives you a lot more to work with, because the main advantage, I would say, of the Group 1 car, which is of course this one, is it has a tunable gearbox. And of course a lot of people know this now, but for those who maybe didn't, that is a pretty huge advantage to have, because with any Vision GT car that doesn't have tunable gears, well, that's always the problem. It means that whatever performance you've got, that's it. You can never change it, regardless of how much power you give it. The top speed is not going to change. And that's unfortunate, because that used to be a problem on GT6 as well. Something like, for instance, the Infiniti Vision GT or the Nissan 2020 Vision GT, they'd get to their top speed and you could feel that the car had more potential, but you couldn't reach it because you couldn't tune the gears. Now though, with this one, for instance, you can, and you've got 6 gears to work with, if I recall correctly. It might have been 7, but I think it was 6. And as you can see in the video, you can use that in a number of different ways. For instance, the one that I'm using is a 3-speed version, which are, of course, much longer gears, Chaparral style. I wanted it to have that kind of experimental feel to it, where you can still get it up around 240 miles per hour. You just use 3 gears instead of 6. Now, this car has a number of advantages that the Group X car already has. For instance, the aero tech is carried over for the most part. This one is still all-wheel drive, for instance, and although it doesn't have as much power to begin with, when you tune it up, it actually does. It has well over 900, in fact, not far off 1,000, so it's actually really good. Now, in terms of torque, in its stock form, it's not amazing. As I already said earlier, you're looking at 640 horsepower. That's accompanied by 444 pound-feet of torque, and the car, it's reasonably light. It's not amazing for something that's going up against prototypes, but 972 kilos isn't bad. Of course, that's less than a metric ton, which means that the horsepower per ton is more than the power output, and that's always a good position to be in. 658 horsepower per ton stock, that's more than good enough to go up against a number of prototypes. So in terms of actual use, which one has better use in the general sense, really, for racing, but also which one should you buy first, or maybe even only, if you're only going to get one of the two? Well, I think it's kind of a foregone conclusion that the Group 1 car is pretty much the better of the two in every sense apart from stock, because as soon as you tune it, it's better. The fact that you can tune the gearbox is a huge advantage. The category alone means that you can actually use it, which is a pretty huge advantage in itself, given that Group X cars can't exactly get a lot of use beyond one-make racing. So I would say it's pretty much a no-brainer. To top it all off, they're the same price, 1,000,000 credits each. So if you're only going to buy one of the two Hyundais, I would definitely recommend going for this one, the Group 1 version. And that actually goes for a lot of these. I would say the Mazda, for instance, the Gr.1 LM55 is definitely the one to go for, and likewise a lot of people, I believe if I recall correctly, do prefer the Gr.1 version of the McLaren as well. Even though it doesn't have as much power, it's just a more useful, more usable vehicle. So overall, this is, I would say, a great new addition, really, to the Vision GT lineup. It's not new anymore, it's been out for a while, but in a general sense, I like what it brings to the table. I love the fact that Hyundai chose to think well outside of the box when other companies like Mitsubishi or BMW had a very restrained approach, which to me is kind of boring. Other ones are a bit more exciting, like Nissan or Peugeot or Infiniti, and then you get the ones that just go full-on balls-to-the-wall crazy, and those are my favourites. Chaparral, SRT, Hyundai. These are the kind of cars that make full use of the creative boundaries, or lack thereof, of the VGT program, and I like that. And in a funny kind of way, it almost acts as a combination of tributes between the modern day Garage 56 at Le Mans, which is where vehicles like the Delta Wing run, ones that don't fit into general categories, but also combined with a tribute, in effect, to the old school days of racing in categories such as Can-Am, where the rules were much more loose, you could be much crazier, more futuristic. So it's almost like those two things meeting together and then blending that in with the creative style or the brand style of a specific manufacturer or mark. So I like that, and I think Hyundai has done a great job of showcasing a creative take on a car. So overall, if you haven't driven the Hyundais yet, I mean, chances are you probably have, but give it a chance, give it a look. It's certainly a different approach to both a VGT and a Le Mans prototype, in a general sense, and I actually really like it. It is one of my favourites so far. But that's it for this pick overall. Of course, I'll see you guys next time, and for now, as always, thanks for watching.